This episode is brought to you by Puma Running.
I'm really after a new race day shoe. Can you tell me a bit more about the Puma Fast R2?
The Puma Fast R2 are my favourite race day shoe. Now, I ran in these for Chicago Marathon, and I definitely think they helped me on my way to a 4-minute PB where I ran 2:23, just because they save your legs so much, which is obviously very helpful for marathon running.
What do you think makes them so special?
Two things I think really make the difference. Firstly, this carbon plate that you can see extends right beyond the forefoot. That just gives you an extra spring on each step, really propels you forward. Secondly, the nitro foam. This is nitrogen infused foam, which gives you maximum cushioning and maximum energy return. So that means you are more efficient each stride and can essentially run faster for longer.
Okay, I'm sold.
Well, I have great news for our 5 Miles Easy UK listeners. We have a race special discount code for Puma Running. Enter 5ME20 at Puma Running to get 20% off.
Additives and preservatives and flavours and sweeteners make the foods hyper palatable. They make them addictive, and that's the issue. Carbs with low level protein in that early window is your key to great recovery. So people who pick up a no added sugar, low carb, high protein, wow, I've got 25 grams of protein, great. For that early window, you're not hitting what your body needs. Maltitol, sucralose, palm oil itself, and then you've got fat reduced cocoa powder. The list goes on. This is only one bar. Wheat, flour, maize starch, rapeseed oil, bulking agent. Nice, something to really add some bulk to it. It's really important, if you are involved in regular exercise, that you do fuel for that and you do take that seriously, because your performance will improve, your overall health will improve, and to deny yourself the fuel because you're trying to exercise to lose weight, or you're trying to put yourself into a calorie deficit, so you want to slim into your bikini, so you're going to go running this week. That's not really a healthy way to approach exercise.
Welcome back to 5 Miles Easy. On the show today, we're talking nutrition. And we're going to be getting to the bottom of the best way to fuel our bodies, both for performance and our overall health. We're going to be joined by Lara Giusti, who is co-founder and head chef at natural nutrition brand Veloforte.
With over 20 years' experience, Lara has a wealth of knowledge on what it takes to fuel performance and recover from endurance exercise. She firmly believes the best way to do this is sticking to natural foods and staying away from ultra-processed and synthetic alternatives. We're going to find out why. Rose, this is such a topical subject with so many trends and fads out there, especially on social media and in the fitness industry. It's really hard to know what the right way to fuel your body is.
It's so true. I mean, as you said, social media is it's crammed full of accounts that recommend restricting your diet, excluding certain food groups, and there are just so many different views. Even among experts, moving away from social media, actual experts who know the science, there are also just loads of different opinions out there. So it is hard to know. What's your experience been of your nutrition in terms of fueling your performance?
Yeah, so I think it's developed over the years, just in terms of making sure I'm developing my knowledge from experts that are qualified, because what I found is actually there are a lot of people that call themselves nutritionists that have done like a 3-day course in nutrition and actually haven't done like a 3 or 4 year degree where they know the science behind it. So just making sure that you're getting your information from trusted sources, and I think that's been a key in terms of understanding what I need to do to make sure that I'm fueling myself the best way possible. So for me, the things that I really stick to are ensuring that I'm getting enough carbs in both before and after. I think there's such a hype with protein at the moment where people think that's like a good source of fuel, but your body, carbohydrates are literally the main source of fuel that your body needs to perform. So making sure you're getting that in. And then just making sure that the timing is right. So going into each session feeling energized, and then if my session or run is longer than sort of an hour to 90 minutes, ensuring that I'm bringing fuel with me in order to fuel my run during that. And then afterwards as well, people say you've got that 30-minute window where you really need to get something in quickly. So making sure I get that sort of 3-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein to just start that recovery process, and then getting a meal in as soon as I can.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I've been lucky enough to work with sports nutritionists. And I think the irony is that their advice is so simple. It's exactly as you say, just get good fuel in at the right times. And it doesn't need to be, you don't need to follow any restrictive diets, cut out any food groups or eat anything in particular. It's just got to be balanced. And I think that's the key. It's balance and consistency, which is such a boring answer. Everyone always looks for the complicated thing because they think it's got to be extreme to work. And I just don't think it does. Just keep it simple.
Yeah, and just trusting that fueling yourself well is going to make you perform better, I think. And I've seen it so much in this sport, and it's really sad that, there's that concept of lighter is faster, whereas actually like being fueled is faster. The people that try and restrict, it doesn't last long. They're injured, and that's really sad to see. But just trusting, fueling your body, not worrying about the other things is going to make you the best athlete.
And be better for your overall health, because there is a time after running and you want to be healthy and running for a long period of time. So I think that's always most important. But the timing point's definitely something that I have learnt a lot about, and I didn't always used to get it right, not consciously, but I just was not informed about it. And so didn't pay enough attention to that. And actually I think that's been my biggest takeaway from working with the sports nutritionist on the importance of that, and actually just being more responsible about it.
Yeah.
And what about with your training now? Because you're taking on a bigger distance, the ultra, has anything changed for you?
Well, so actually my last marathon build up, I was working with a sports nutritionist, and I was then learning like, okay, this is how often I need to take fuel on, how much fluid to take on. So I was already kind of practicing that. So no matter what race I was training for next, it was going to be like continuing to practice that. And the fact that the race is longer means that I really need to be on top of it. And I can't have any moment in a race that's going to be up to about 4 hours that I feel low on energy. So just ensuring that I'm getting over 60, trying to hit 90 grams of carbs per hour during that. And I need to practice that in training. You need to train your gut for these things. I can't be, I'll just try one gel in this session and then on race day, try like taking in loads more. So on all my long sessions now, I'm getting in carb drinks, gels, a mixture of things to make sure I know what it feels like. And you feel the benefit in the sessions as well, because my long sessions are just well fueled throughout, and you just, it makes the session way better as well and more enjoyable, that you're not hitting a wall or flagging. So you kind of end the session strong, which I think is great.
And it's something you said before about thinking about it as part of the training. And sometimes it isn't comfortable, whether, you're just trying to fuel for the first time or whether you're trying to increase it. It isn't the most enjoyable experience all the time. But I think what you said is so true. It's just another aspect of the training, and it's such an important one that you just got to get on with it. You do painful sessions, so it's just the same.
Yeah, and I think also like when you're doing high mileage or long sessions afterwards as well, I'm so aware of like, okay, I've just put my body through this. I need to now like treat it with respect and refuel it. Whereas maybe before, again, not intentionally, but you just, without the knowledge, you're just like, oh, well, I don't really feel hungry after that. I've been having gels and I've put my stomach through a lot. You don't feel like you want food, but it's knowing actually, like you just said, it's part of the training, you need to refuel yourself.
Right. Should we get Lara on?
Let's do it. And before we speak to Lara, remember you can get 30% off the Veloforte website with the code 5miles.
Lara, thanks so much for joining us for 5 Miles Easy today. We are so excited to have you on the show because we were just chatting about nutrition and how it's a bit of a minefield. There are so many different opinions out there, especially with the likes of social media. So we're really excited to get your expert views on the sofa today. But to kick things off, I want to start with the problem. What do you think is the problem with a lot of kind of common nutrition bars that you find in the supermarkets? And I guess what are you trying to solve that led you to start Veloforte?
Great question. Oh, lovely to be here, by the way. Thanks for having me. So I think I was generally appalled by what I found looking at generic sports nutrition. Back in 2016, myself and my husband were in a health kick, and we were progressing our miles and thinking, I need to start taking on some energy here. And went to the supermarket and bought, the generic gels and the energy bars and the protein bars. I couldn't quite believe what was in the products. As a healthy eating person myself, and I really have foundational beliefs that eating a varied, healthy diet is what gives you, what you put in, you get out. So, to know that I try and eat as healthy and feed my family as healthy as possible. And then when you're putting yourself at the biggest, highest stress moments, you're actually consuming chemicals, artificial ingredients that you would never, ever use in your daily diet. You wouldn't have them in your kitchen cupboards. Why on earth would you ingest them when you're pushing really hard? So that sort of brought me on to a quest to, there must be a better way. There must be a way of fueling with real food that you can make portable and handy without all of the rubbish ingredients. And so that's really why we started Veloforte.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy how when you go into a supermarket, the only products that you see are those ones where if you actually look at the label, it's like you don't recognize any of the ingredients. Exactly. And it's crazy to think that people are fueling themselves with this in order to perform at their best in their sport.
Totally. And I think people for many years have been sort of almost blindsided by science that's force-fed to them. You have to get this many carbs an hour. You have to get that many electrolytes. And, it's really based... The research is based on primarily is in males, so female athletes, go female athletes. We metabolize things slightly different, especially different parts of our cycles. We need different things, and I think that this generic advice of how much fuel you need to take, how often you need to take it, isn't relevant to many sort of weekend warrior athletes. It's designed for sort of high-end athletes, and so it's not really helpful for the main population.
So what is it about those artificial ingredients that is so bad for our health?
Well, I think in the news, the ultra-processed war against ultra-processed food is more and more on our radar, isn't it? So people are now starting to look at the back of packs and thinking, do I recognise that ingredient? Is it something that I would use in my household cooking? And I think there's a difference between processing, which can be as simple as boiling an egg. You've processed that egg and you've got to do that to eat it. It's impossible to eat it, or unsafe to eat it without doing so. Or grilling a piece of chicken, or canning some tuna so that it has a longer life span for us to be able to enjoy it into the future. That's a level of basic processing. And then there's the ultra processing, which basically is replacing the raw materials, the non-processed, the fruits, the vegetables, the basic foodstuffs, with additives and preservatives and flavours and sweeteners that make the foods hyper palatable. They make them addictive, and that's the issue, because they taste amazingly good, like super versions, and so people want to eat more of them, but actually they have very little nutritional benefits to them because they're not based on the raw materials that give us all these amazing nutrients. That's where the danger lies, really.
And what about gut health with all of that, and what those chemicals actually do to our body? Because presumably, if just thinking about it from an evolutionary perspective, we were never meant to ingest those artificial chemicals that are made in the lab. So is that bad for our gut and our health generally?
There is a growing body of evidence to suggest that all these artificial ingredients that we're ingesting on a daily basis, multi-times a day, are not good for our general health. There has been links to cancer. There's definitely links to obesity because of the overeating nature of these ultra-processed foods. There is also some evidence to suggest that all of these chemicals we're putting into ourselves are damaging our microflora within our gut. And within our gut lining, we've got trillions of bacteria, and there's about 200 different species. Some are good for us and some are not so good for us, but it's the balance between the good and the bad that gives us our optimum gut health. These processed ingredients tend to facilitate the bad bacteria rather than the natural fibres in fruit and vegetables and whole food ingredients that feed our good bacteria, these prebiotic fibres. And it's that weight between the good and the bad that keeps your internal system happy and keeps your digestion good. And there's major links between good gut health and mental health, cardiac health, your immunity. So by making sure that you're eating a balanced diet with real food ingredients, real fibres, real vitamins, colourful rainbow foods, you can make sure that you're feeding the good bacteria in your gut and keep that very important balance.
And presumably then if you are fueling yourself with those chemicals before you're trying to, say, go on a big run, as an example, then you're more likely to have the stomach issues that everyone talks about and not feel as good.
Yeah, I think from a chemical point of view, less likely to see those on such a short-term basis. So if you ate healthily and you took a synthetic gel before a run, you may get stomach upsets, not necessarily about your gut health as such, but it's more about the concentration of these heavily refined sugars that you'll find in, say, synthetic gels. These isolated sugars that just concentrate on like pure glucose rather than natural sugars that you find in real ingredients that have a balance between glucose and fructose and other natural sugars that you find in real food ingredients. Within your gut lining, you have carbohydrate sugar channels that allow you to pump sugar from your inside your stomach and your gut into your blood supply, and then that takes it to your muscles, and we're all in a happy place, energized. But you can overload these gut channels really easily. So you have your major channels are glucose and your fructose channels, and your glucose channels can absorb maybe 60 grams an hour of glucose, pure glucose, and your fructose maybe up to 30 grams an hour. So if you think about these high dose carbohydrate gels that are now all over the market, or these high carbohydrate drinks, and you think people are putting huge doses, 60 grams plus in their system in one go, and then they're doing that maybe 2 or 3 times an hour, no wonder you're going to get an upset stomach. Because what your body tries to do in all situations is create parity, to have balance between the concentration of carbohydrates inside your gut and inside your blood. So you may have heard of hypotonic, hypertonic, isotonic solutions. All this tonicity means is the comparison of the percentage or the concentration of glucose inside your gut to inside your blood. So if you take a hypertonic food source, something high in glucose, high in carbs, into your system, your body wants to equalize the water ratios between your blood and your gut. And because your body can't pump that much quickly into your blood supply, the water moves from your circulating blood volume into your bowel. And that's why you get cramping, diarrhea, all the nasty gastric side effects by overdosing on these highly refined and very concentrated sugar products. So that's the issue with synthetic gels versus a more natural kind of product which has a whole balance of sugars in there, and you're going to drip feed those in. We would always say, fuel little and often. You're fueling for the 5 miles ahead, not the 5 miles you've done behind. So every 20 minutes, take on fuel. Don't bolus these huge amounts of carbohydrates and energy in one sitting, because you're going to overload your system. Like you're chipping away on the energy that you're holding generally in your muscles and in your liver when you start your run, you need to top that up, chip away, topping up as well. So you're not going to deplete yourself before you then fuel yourself again. And that's the best tip I can give to keep your energy sustained and your gut happy.
And with the glucose and fructose balance you mentioned in the natural products, I think a lot of the synthetic energy gels are just glucose, aren't they? Is that right?
I think historically they were, and they're catching up. And so now a lot of them have dual source carbohydrates, as we call them. So they contain glucose and fructose to try and get over this overloading issue. But because they still use isolated sugars, it's concentrated glucose, it's concentrated fructose, the danger of overdosing on those is much higher than if you use real food.
And do we have basically a maximum that we physiologically can absorb anyway? So in the natural sources, say if technically the carbohydrate levels are slightly lower, does that actually not matter because we're still at our maximum absorption level?
So I think that's a really interesting question, because you hear in the news now people are like trying to up their carb intake per hour. It used to be more and more and more. Not necessarily the case, and it depends on your intensity, exercise intensity. Are you burning that many carbs? Do you really need to replace that many carbs? Does your body need that? So we would say, if you're just going for a short run, half an hour, 45 minutes, you don't need to take on fuel. You really don't, because your body's got that stored inside it. As long as you're eating healthily and you haven't skipped a meal, your body's got enough energy to fuel you for that. So you just need to make sure you're pre-fueling well and you're post-fueling well. You're fueling for your recovery. If you're out for more than an hour, you're going to be chipping away at that natural glycogen store, your energy store in your muscles, and you should start to replace those early on in your session. But are you, running at maximum intensity for that hour, or are you doing a gentle 10k jog? You got to think about how much energy you're using and try and replace that in a conservative way, I would say. So I would say less is more, especially when you're starting to take on energy products if you've not used them in your running. So I would say you need to aim towards the 45 grams of carbs an hour. And then if you're running for more than an hour and a half, then up that up to 60. If you're running for more than 2.5, 3 hours, you can be pushing that towards 90 grams. And the traditional maximum that's been recognised before is around 90 grams if you take on dual source carbohydrates. So I said like 60 grams of glucose, 30 grams of fructose, and you're going to keep your tummy happy. But again, if you drip feed that energy in, you think in the first 20 minutes I've taken, 22 grams of carbs, and then I'm going to 22 grams again. In the next, 20 minutes, you're not playing catch up from that. You've got more than an hour before you're exceeding your maximum amount. So it's all about little and often.
I think that's so important, because I think a lot of people tend to wait until they feel like they're low on energy during a run or a race. Yeah, and it's too late.
You can't play catch up.
Exactly. You need to remember, say in a marathon, you're going to be taking it quite soon after the start. And you think, well, I've still got loads of energy, but actually you've got to think ahead. And
exactly. Eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty. Let's not forget hydration in this as well, because that is super important to maintaining endurance performance too.
Okay.
So for people who, go to the supermarket and pick up what is advertised as a sports bar, something that will either help recovery, help fuel your performance, typically there are a lot of artificial ingredients in that.
There are.
And things that probably, a lot of sweeteners, a lot of chemicals in there. We've actually brought one with us.
Yeah. Well, here it is.
So can you just take us through what's bad in it? Because I think, even before I kind of learned more about it, I would go and pick up one of these branded protein bars that are advertised as good recovery fuel. and I wouldn't really question it. But then when I look at the back of the packet, I don't recognise most of those ingredients. So just take us through the worst of them.
Oh, well, first of all, I'm just going to talk about fueling for recovery just very briefly before we have a look at this lovely bar that you've given me. There's a lot of misconception that it's all about protein. If you've been exercising for over an hour, hour and a half, you have to address your glucose depletion in your system as well. Because no matter how well you fuel, you're probably going to have a bit of a glycogen debt in your system when you come back in. So in the early window of recovery, and we say there's an early and a later window. Early window is in sort of within half an hour of finishing your exercise. You really need to concentrate on replacing your carbohydrates into your system, and having some low level protein is helpful because it helps you absorb those even quicker. You've got much longer, 2 to 4 hours, before you need to address your protein intake for your muscle repair. So that's a common misconception. Carbs with low level protein in that early window is your key to great recovery. So people who pick up a no added sugar, low carb, high protein, wow, I've got 25 grams of protein, great. For that early window, you're not hitting what your body needs. You're not. And you're also potentially eating an awful lot of extremely refined ingredients. So I've got a protein bar, which is advertised 21 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar per bar, high protein, low sugar. Great. Looks like a chocolate bar. Feels like a chocolate bar. Is covered in chocolate. Ingredients: a protein blend. So it's got a calcium calcinate, which is milk, whey protein isolate, which is milk, and then it's covered in milk chocolate with sweetener, which is maltitol. It's got cocoa butter, whole milk cocoa mass emulsifier, soy lecithin, natural flavouring. Let me just touch on natural flavours for a while. Anything that says natural flavouring is not from a natural product. How they create these natural flavours is they break down, say, a strawberry. They look at it in a lab. They look at all the phytochemicals that are in there that create the flavour and the smell. They separate those out, and then they reconnect them from their chemical lab so it kind of smells like a strawberry, kind of tastes like a strawberry. It's never seen a strawberry in its life, and they're allowed to call them natural flavourings. So anything you see natural flavouring, it does not come from a fruit, but it may smell or taste vaguely like a fruit or a vegetable or whatever it is. So natural flavouring. And then we've got bovine collagen, a humectant glycerol. So emulsifiers help things stick together, make a very uniform mix. Okay, we don't have emulsifiers in natural life. Things separate. Oh, what a terrible thing. If you made a vinaigrette and you sat it on the side, it would separate. How do you mix it together? Give it a shake. It's not hard, is it? But in a shelf-stable product, they don't want things to separate, so they're going to add artificial emulsifiers, things that stick things together and keep it all right. Humectant, so glycerol is in here. Humectant keeps moisture within a product, so it stops it from drying out. So this product might have a shelf life of maybe 2 years because it's got artificial ingredients in it. Now, a glycerol can come from a variety of sources. You can get it from coconut, which is like the best source. Otherwise, it comes from palm oil or other less environmentally friendly sources. Then it's got sweetness. You've got maltitol, sucralose, palm oil itself, and then you've got fat reduced cocoa powder. The list goes on. This is only one bar. Wheat flour, maize starch, rapeseed oil, bulking agent. Nice, something to really add some bulk to it. Sea salt, wheat starch emulsifier, soy lecithin, raising agents, ammonia carbonate, sodium carbonates, acidity regular, sodium hydroxide, and flavourings, not even natural ones. So that's all in one bar. How many ingredients was that? 20?
And in my mind, I'm just thinking, imagine seeing all of that on your kitchen counter and then being told to eat it.
Did you hear any real food in that?
No.
Anything you'd have in your kitchen cupboard?
Absolutely
Okay,
not.
I'm just going to name and shame now because this is a Veloforte. One of our protein bars. It's a protein recovery bar, so it has what you need in it. It's got carbs and protein. Hooray! And in this bar, a mocha bar, which is a hazelnut coffee and cocoa bar, it has roasted hazelnut butter and roasted hazelnuts. Real food?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Dates. Real food?
Yep.
Yeah. Cane sugar. Great. Brown rice syrup. And it's got some plant protein. It's got pea protein and brown rice protein. It's got cocoa powder and decaffeinated coffee and a bit of tapioca starch. And that's it. So how many drinks was that? 5 or 6. And it tastes amazing. And it's got a naturally long shelf life. We don't use preservatives, additives, flavourings, anything, any stabilisers. It's got a natural long shelf life because we treat it with respect. We bake it traditionally. So there's a couple of ways that you can increase a shelf life naturally. This is good for your home baking too. So bringing the ingredients to a certain temperature, above 80 degrees Celsius, will kill all the natural bacteria in there, which is great, give you a longer natural shelf life. Having a product with natural sugar in it as well. I mean, jamming has been, the perennial way to preserve things. And how do you jam? You add sugar to something, and sugar is a natural preservative. So it's got sugar in it. And then we wrap it in an airtight container. And again, so a film here. And that keeps moisture out, keeps moisture in, and gives it a little protective environment. You can do that with Tupperware at home, So that's how we preserve our bars. We don't have 25 ingredients, preservatives, humectants, and everything else, emulsifiers that you would find in a common high protein, low sugar bar that you would pick up off the shelf.
Yeah. And you need to just Google all those words as well to know what they mean for your average person.
Exactly.
It's crazy. I also think having tried both of those bars, you can feel the difference as well in yourself. Like, one doesn't make you feel so great. And then the Veloforte bar, because it is natural, you feel energized, you feel like it's doing you good.
Exactly. And if you just have a look at the allergens on this high protein, no added sugar bar, you've got obviously gluten, you've got other cereal allergens, may contain traces of mustard and polyols, and excessive consumption may cause a laxative effect. How many of these am I going to reach for in a day? It is a choice. It is a choice. What you put in, you get out. So, just be aware.
So we all know how important good nutrition is to fuel our running performance. But one thing I get asked about a lot is how to fuel training sessions, because gels can be quite hard to tolerate and quite hard to get used to.
Especially as a lot of sports nutrition is heavily processed with artificial ingredients, not always that great on the stomach. But recently we've been trying Veloforte and loving it, haven't we?
We have. Veloforte is a natural way to fuel your performance. Their gut-healthy bars, recovery shakes and performance-enhancing gels and chews are all made from real, natural ingredients with no junk and additives, easier on your stomach and overall better for you.
And they taste delicious too. Chef-made recipes and so many incredible flavours. There's something for everyone, for every activity.
Favourite product?
My favourite product is the energy bar. Really good straight after a session or on the go.
I love this one. This is the recovery shake, and they just taste so delicious after a hard training session.
Thanks to Veloforte for supporting this podcast. Head to veloforte.com and get 30% off by entering the code 5miles at checkout. That's the number 5 and the word miles.
So for endurance sport,
Yes.
Now I think we've pretty firmly established out of those two which one would be better for us, for both our performance and our general health. But just talk us through in more detail what we should be eating before, during, and after. What's a good breakfast before a long run, a session, or a race? We touched a bit on the amount of carbs that we can consume during, but what are some good sources of that? And then for recovery again, what would you recommend someone having?
So the pre-race thing is really interesting, isn't it? Because some people like to fuel beforehand, and timing of that is very important for digestive comfort when you're going out for longer runs and rides. So for people who like a breakfast or whatever they're like a meal before they exercise, something that will give you a source of carbohydrates, a source of protein, not necessarily particularly high fat, and not necessarily anything sort of aggressively spicy, is a great source. So I'm obsessed with overnight oats at the moment, and having a protein load to those as well. There's a great, a porridge is something that's going to sit really nicely in your tummy. It's got, slow release carbs. You can use natural sugars, real fruit on the top to give you some faster release carbs as well. Things like scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs on whole grain toast. Yum, delicious. You've got carbs, you've got protein, something that's really quick and easy to make. That's another thing as well. You don't need to spend 3 hours of meal prep before you get ready for a run, and to time it about 2 to 3 hours before you set off is optimal time to allow you to digest it. If you prefer to go out first thing in the morning and you prefer to run fasted or exercise fasted, so that basically means you're not eating a meal before you do your exercise, that's okay for short burst exercises. So if you're up for like 45 minutes, you're doing a 5K, you're just doing some strength training, that's fine, because you'll have enough reserves in your body to fuel that, as long as you've had a good meal the night before. And a top tip as well, if you know you're doing an early training run the next day and you don't have time for breakfast, then to make sure you have a little protein-rich snack, carb-rich, natural carb snack before bed. So a bowl of Greek yogurt and some fresh fruit is a really good thing, just to keep yourself topped up before you go to sleep, so you know that you're sort of primed in the morning. Or if you're doing an event and again you're away from home and you haven't had a chance to have breakfast, or you didn't fancy anything on the buffet table, then you can top your energies up with fuel that you've tried and tested in your training. So you can have a gel on the start line, you can nibble an energy bar while you're waiting to go, just to make sure that you're not starting on empty. So that would be my top tips for pre-fueling. We've talked a little bit already about how to make sure you don't run your energy supplies down before you start fueling. So start fueling from the first 20 to 30 minutes in any longer run session. And your choice of fueling is completely up to you. So, some people love energy gels. Some people hate energy gels, mostly because they've had bad experiences with them. We do a range of natural energy gels that are a blend of plant-based syrups, fruit juice concentrates, and pink Himalayan salt. I mean, there's nothing in there that's going to upset you. They taste amazing. They're neat and easy to carry and easy to swallow. So I would recommend giving those a go. Some people prefer to chew their energy. So again, energy chews are really popular at the moment. You can take nibbles of an energy bar as you're going along. But again, important thing is to drip feed that energy in every 20 minutes. Right, it's my time to fuel. Choose something that you look forward to fueling with. And that's half the battle with fueling for any long event, is that you get flavour fatigue, you can't face the next fueling session, and then you just don't. And then you regret it, because you're going to hit the wall, you're going to feel dreadful, and you're never going to be able to catch up. So choose energy products that you've tried and tested in your training, that you enjoy the taste of. And when your buzzer goes off on 20 minutes, you're like, oh, great, time for me to have a couple of chews, or time for me to have a little gel, or, and don't dread that fueling, and keep going and keep hydrated. I did mention hydration before as well. So you can take energy in your liquids as well. So if you actually don't like the sensation of chewing or taking on solid energy when you run, and lots of people don't, by all means, put your energy in your liquid, but make sure that you're taking that liquid on a regular basis. So, you should be aiming at 500 to 700 mils an hour. That's hard. That's hard to carry that much liquid. It's hard on a race day where you're beholden on the fueling stations, but just try as hard as you can to make sure you're taking on liquid, and if you can put your fuel in there as well, then great. And you can put energy, and electrolytes are super important. Super important if you're exercising over an hour to include electrolytes in your fuel. You can do that too. So our gels have a sodium load. They have 110 milligrams of sodium per gel. Our chews have around the same in them. You can put electrolytes in your water and energy products in your water, just to make sure, because we all sweat. You sweat in the hot, you sweat in the cold, you sweat when you're exercising. And the main electrolyte you're losing in there is sodium. So if you can just concentrate on replacing your sodium as you go, you're going to feel more energized. Your circulating blood volume is going to keep where it should be in your circulation and not be leaking out into your shoes and into out your skin. And you're going to feel much more energized. And then afterwards, again, addressing that carb reload moment within the first 30 minutes. Carbs first with a bit of protein to help you take on that energy into your muscles, and then having a good balanced meal within 2 to 3 hours. You don't need a protein shake in 2 to 3 hours. If you're on the finish line, you can have a protein shake because it's really fast and it's really effective, and it's got everything that you need. It's got your carbs, your protein, your electrolytes, your fluids, everything that you need on that early recovery window. Later on, you should be back at home, or you should be in your hotel room, or wherever you are after competing, or back from the gym. And it's a healthy, balanced meal, and you're looking at having natural carbohydrates, whole food ingredients, lots of colourful veggies. Get all your amazing vitamins and minerals in, and just feed your body back to health, because what you put in, you get out. So don't miss any of those fueling opportunities, because you'll really see the benefits in your performance if you stick to that.
Yeah, it almost seems like just keep it simple.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way. People really try and overcomplicate fueling. And I think, as you've just described, just plan ahead before exercise, during and after, keeping it simple, and it's not that hard to do.
It isn't. It's about finding a regime that works for you, finding a fueling strategy that works for you, finding things to fuel on that you look forward to, that sit well inside you. And that's a journey that you have to go on. No one can do that for you. And everyone has their own preferences, texture, taste, format. So have fun. Have fun, trying out different things. And some you'll enjoy and some will enjoy less, but you'll eventually find out what works really well for you, so that when you have done all your training, or if you do go for that extra long run, you know that you are comfortable. You know how your body responds to things, and there's going to be no surprises on event day. No surprises, you're going to help to reduce your delayed onset muscle soreness, because you've fed your recovery, you've actively thought about it, you've made sure your body's got exactly what it needs in the right time frames. And that's half the battle to making you want to go out again and making you want to push yourself a little bit harder.
What strikes me there is everything you've described in those meals. It's just, as Steph said, simple, but also very balanced. And you've got all food groups, you're not excluding anything. Whereas I think so many people, social media experts, as they call themselves, recommend excluding food groups for performance or to hit certain goals. You get all of these people on social media saying, they've gone from not being able to run 5K to doing all these amazing challenges because they've cut out gluten, dairy, everything. What's your take on that? Is the best way to have everything, or should we be excluding anything for performance, recovery, health?
Balance is the answer. Our nutrition is a 360 approach to nutrition. It's not just about how you feel the night before. It's not just about how you feel on the day. It's not about what you ate at the weekend. It's take a holistic approach to your fueling. I would say you shouldn't cut out anything. A heavy night of alcohol before you go on a run is perhaps not the best idea. But I think exercise for many people is about as much about physical health as it is as mental health, and I think nutrition is the same. So denying yourself your most loved food, it's not great for your mental health. It's quite depressing. So, it's okay to have treats from time to time. And I don't think there's any one food group, unless you've got an allergen, a major intolerance, and you know that something upsets you on your exercise day or your race day, then obviously avoid that. But really, just have a really balanced approach and try and not kick yourself in the bum if you've had a bad day. It's okay. Tomorrow's another day. You're going to start back on the healthy train then. So I think, it's all about balance.
Yeah. And so you've spoken about the importance of fueling. What is the risk of not fueling properly? So you spoke about during exercise, if you're not fueling properly, then you might hit the wall, you'll face low energy. But what about if you're not fueling properly before and after, and just in general?
So I think, if you have you don't fuel for one exercise session, you're going to feel it. It's not going to have any long-lasting effects to you. If you are training, if you're, a professional athlete, semi-professional athlete, and you're training consistently without fueling properly, there is a condition, REDS, it's known as, so relative energy deficiency syndrome, where you're basically eating into your body reserves and you're not ever replacing those, and that becomes quite dangerous. It becomes dangerous on general energy levels. It becomes counterintuitive to your recovery. For female athletes, it can have major implications on your menstrual cycle and on your bone density as well. So it's really important, if you are involved in regular exercise, that you do fuel for that and you do take that seriously, because your performance will improve, your overall health will improve, and to deny yourself the fuel because you're trying to exercise to lose weight, or you're trying to put yourself into a calorie deficit, so you want to slim into your bikini, so you're going to go running this week. That's not really a healthy way to approach exercise. It's, again, balance. So what you put in, you get out. You're trying to fuel the engine. If you bought a Ferrari, would you put vegetable oil in its engine? No, you wouldn't, would you? You choose the best quality fuel because, your engine is your heart, is your lungs, is your gut, is your brain. If you're not fueling that properly, how can you possibly expect to gain from all the training that you're doing? Look after yourself.
It's such a good point, and I always think people make so much effort to go out and exercise, and then when they're not making the effort to eat well afterwards, or going and having loads of additives afterwards, it's just like, why it seems like the easy thing to do when you've made so much effort to go and do the exercise in the first place.
Absolutely. You bought the new trainers, you've got the the latest sweaty better gear on, you're feeling good, and yet you're not actually giving yourself the best chance of gaining the most out of the efforts that you're putting in. So your body's really important. Fuel it properly.
Do you think it's a lack of knowledge, or just that people think they can get away with things and it'll be fine?
I think there is a general lack of knowledge, and there's a lot of miscommunication online. You mentioned the Instagram influencers of, don't eat this, eat that, take this amazing supplement, you're going to find, your muscle building's going to be incredible. Cavemen never had these amazing stuff. They survived the dinosaurs, didn't they? So if they can do that on real food, then we can do anything on real food. So I think just take a measured approach to it, and look to your kitchen cupboards. What have you got in there? What do you like eating? What do you know sits well in your tummy? And if you need a convenience part of it, if you want to look for energy products that don't have 17 ingredients, that don't have the artificial additives, preservatives, that mirror your real food diet that you would follow normally.
And what about sugar? Because
the S word.
Yeah. Sugar has been so demonized by the media over the last 5 years or so. And obviously there's a balance, because I think we all know loads of sugar is not great for us. But I mean, as endurance athletes, we also understand the importance of having that to fuel our bodies. So what's the balance, and is all sugar the same?
sugar is sugar. Sorry to break that to everybody. Whether it's whether it's natural sugar in dried fruits, it's refined sugar in white table sugar, it's the natural sugars that you find in vegetables. They're not all created equal, but what it happens inside your body from a glucose point of view, from a pure sugar molecule point of view, is pretty similar no matter how you ingest it. But there are obviously benefits from eating sugar from natural sources, from whole food sources. So a sugar within a date comes with all the wonderful vitamins and fibre and bulk inside that versus a teaspoon of sugar in your tea. So although the energy between the two is very similar, and from a breakdown point of view, you're going to get a similar energy out of it. Eating whole food sources of sugar is much more healthy than having a refined sugar source. Sugar, so let's talk about sugar. So sugar that we all have on our table, that we have in our cups of tea, that you would some people sprinkle on their cereal, is table sugar, and that's sucrose, and sucrose is a disaccharide, so it's basically 50-50 glucose and fructose split down the middle. That's what you're having. So a spoonful of sugar, you're going to get half of that is glucose and half of that is fructose. Now, you've got lots of different sugars. You've got lactose that you get in milk. You've got galactose. You've got maltose that are in starchy foods, so your root vegetables. And all of them will break down into glucose. So, sugar is sugar. Now, like I said before, eating whole food ingredients, which have fibre alongside the carbohydrate intake, will slow the release into your system, and it's that big glycemic load that is so demonized on refined sugar products. So you eat something sugary, a donut, and suddenly you've got this huge sugar spike, which is linked with inflammation because you get an insulin response, and it's not great for our bodies to have that yo-yoing high to low sugar response in our blood. That's not great. But if you combine protein, if you combine fibre, if you're going to eat a plate of food and you have pasta on it, if you eat your high fibre sources, your protein sources first, that will slow your glycemic release into your blood, and you'll get a much more stilted blood sugar rise from it. So there's ways that you can approach eating sugar carbohydrate food that help you with your blood responses to it.
So eat the vegetables on your plate first and then the carbs. Interesting. I'd always go for the carbs first, especially if I'm hungry.
Fibre, natural fibres really do blunt your sugar spike response. So
that is interesting. And then what about, so if we go back to the bar we were talking through earlier, where there's artificial sweeteners in there, for someone that's worried, I guess, because of the media, I want to reduce my sugar intake, are you better off replacing sugar with artificial sweeteners or just eating the sugar as it is? What's better for your health?
I think look for different sources of sugar. We'll call it carbohydrates, shall we say, sugar-based carbohydrates. So the artificial sweeteners are not good for you. Now, they're still legal, right? The food safety organisations haven't banned them, but there isn't enough evidence to say they will definitely give you cancer. They will definitely interrupt with your gut lining. But there is a growing body of evidence that suggests regular consumption of artificial sweeteners and all of the other nasties that we've talked about today is not good for your overall body health. But it's still not to the point where any of the food safety regulations are saying we shouldn't have them in our food. So, you'll find them in most things in the supermarket. Mm-hmm. Eating real food with real carbohydrates, which, as I said before, it's a complex form of food. It's not isolated carbohydrates, not isolated sweeteners. It comes with all the good stuff, so it's okay. Dates are high sugar, but they're also high fibre. They're also got lots of lovely vitamins in them. They make you feel good. They are a natural preserver of moisture as well. So if you're going to make, some energy balls at home, use dates rather than a refined sugar, or a squeeze of honey is fantastic, or maple syrup. The plant-based syrups are a better choice than like a table sugar, for sure.
And what does your diet look like on a day-to-day basis? Take us through an average day.
I'd love to say I don't have an average day, because I like to eat differently every day, and I think that's really important, that you don't get too regimented in your, I must have this for breakfast, if I don't have this for breakfast I'm going to fail, I don't agree with that. So I, as I said, obsessed with overnight oats at the moment. They are my general go-to in the morning. We're bringing out a new range, actually, which is why I'm so obsessed with them, because I've been working on recipe development, and so I'm just having loads of fun with different flavours and different combinations.
Good to try them all.
I think that's
my
favourite job.
Well, you could be my new guinea pig. So,
the oat queen over here.
Yeah, so I'm loving that. And again, trying to, a good thing to do is to think about your 360 approach to nutrition. So protein is really important. We haven't really touched on that. We talked about protein for recovery, but protein for general body health. Amino acids are the building blocks of all of our cells: eyes, hair, gut, heart, everything. It's not just our muscles, not just what keeps us strong. So trying to add protein to every meal is a really good way to make sure you're hitting your daily protein targets. And so I would generally want to have a source of protein at every meal. That can be something super simple, a scrambled egg, or I boil eggs and keep them in the fridge so that I've got a nice little protein-rich snack, or a scoop of Greek yogurt, or even some nut butter. Yum. Adding a little bit of protein into every meal is a great way to make sure that you're hitting your targets, and just make it like eat the rainbow. It's something that people always say. Get your 5 a day. I try and get more than my 5 a day. The colourful foods have all these most amazing health benefits to them. They're anti-inflammatory, they're antioxidants. They're your natural healing foods. So try and get as many colours on your plate as you can, and have fun eating. So you should enjoy the food that you eat. So use spices, use lots of different formats of carbohydrates. Don't just eat rice, don't just eat pasta, don't just eat potatoes. A varied, balanced diet is what we should all be going for.
Well, thank you so much, Lara, for all of that information. I think that is so much that everyone can take away, and just what I personally take from it is keeping it simple, eating whole, proper food, real food. It's not that difficult. And then just ensuring that you're fueling well before, during and after exercise. And
eating what you enjoy. I think that's such a good point that people kind of forget about. People get so obsessed on what they should be doing, and actually just eating what you enjoy and helping your body, making the choices that make you feel good.
Make a positive choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's such a good point. So thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome.
For sharing all of that.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us for 5 Miles Easy.
See you next time.